in a place called Vadala. This monorail, there was a sudden power outage. The monorail could not move any further, and you can see how people there, about 150 passengers on board when this happened. Initially, they thought, okay, the power will be restored and they will be, moved from that place and the train will start functioning again. But they were stuck there for the better part of over 2 hours now. And you can see rescue operations in full swing. These are members from the fire brigade, from the disaster relief teams as well, who are all there to try and remove these passengers one by one. There is no hope that they have that the power will be restored and the train can be moved from the place where it's stuck right now in Vadala. This is between Trombe and Bhakti Park is what we're given to understand. There is a team that is now having to physically evacuate each one of these passengers who are stuck inside this monorail. You can see this glass enclosure. This is the window of one of the compartments, one of the bogies of the monorail, and some of the passengers inside who were feeling suffocated, they broke open the glass sort of enclosure or the glass casing of that bogie, and it's through that they are now being pulled out one by one. This is going to take a long time because pulling out one person would take anywhere between 4 or 5 minutes. So you can imagine that this will go on for a number of hours. As you can see, this particular individual, you can see him with a backpack on his back. He was again a passenger who was stuck inside that train, that ill-fated monorail compartment. He's now being pulled out. Again, they're slowly being asked to climb down that ladder and then eventually be rescued. This is a bit of a critical situation because, there are women in there, there are children in there, there are elderly folks also in there. Like I said, the BMC says there are about 150 people who are set to be trapped inside this train that is stuck. Now you can see this gentleman, clearly he seems like an office goer. He's climbing down that ladder. It's about 30-odd feet, 30-40 feet above the ground. It's built on these pillars, and you can see, the look on the faces of these people. Clearly, there has been a sense of tension, no doubt about it. There's been a sense of, I wouldn't want to say panic, but certainly if you're stuck in an enclosure for the last 2 or 3 hours, 2.5 hours, then that's not a pretty sight. That's not a good feeling. Let's also listen in to some of these folks who've been brought out, who've been rescued to safety. They spoke to us a moment ago. Let's listen in.
इस बार बहुत ज़्यादा ओवरलोडेड हो गया, इसकी वजह से टिल्ट हो गया।
ओके, तो कितनी देर फंसे रहे आप लोग लगभग इसमें?
यहाँ पर खड़े होकर के 1 घंटा से ज़्यादा हो गया।
अच्छा, और बीएमसी ने किस तरह की
समस्या ये थी कि सफोकेशन ज़्यादा हो रहा था। मैं तो अस्थिर था, लेकिन बहुत सारे लेडीज़ जो अभी भी फंसे हुए हैं, उनको सफोकेशन हो रहा है, बहुत परेशान हो रहे हैं।
तो अब तो खिड़की तोड़ी है, कुछ कांच तोड़े हैं, तो
खिड़की तो अभी लास्ट मोमेंट में अंदर से जबरदस्ती तोड़ा है, तब जाकर के थोड़ी सी हवा मिली है। नहीं तो 1 घंटे से मोनोरेल खड़ा था, वेंटिलेशन का कोई साधन नहीं। इतना पतला सा एक कांच का है, उसको हल्का सा घुमा करके, इतनी पैक पब्लिक है, वो थोड़ा सा वेंटिलेशन क्या काम में आएगा?
तो काम में नहीं आएगा। ट्रेन बंद है इसलिए ओवरलोड थी है।
लोकल ट्रेन बंद है, वो तो मौसम का एक अपना है, कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं, प्राकृतिक आपदा है। लेकिन मोनोरेल की जो सर्विस है ना, हमेशा से खराब रही है, बिल्कुल भी खराब रही है। कभी भी इसमें अभी तो गर्दी है तो ठीक है, नहीं तो गर्दी नहीं भी रही ना, तो भी पब्लिक सेटिस्फेक्शन इसमें बिल्कुल भी नहीं मिलता है। बीच में कभी भी बंद पड़ती है, और अगर कंप्लेन करो फ़ोन नंबर पे तो बोलते हैं कि आप एक काम करो, मैं ईमेल आईडी देता हूँ, आप मेल कर दो। जब पैसेंजर बीच में अटक जाता है तो वो कहाँ मेल करेगा? उसको तो इंस्टेंट रेस्क्यू चाहिए। अभी मुझे ये आश्चर्य हो रहा है कि यहाँ आने के बाद भी 1 घंटा पब्लिक फंसी रही। इतना सफोकेशन था कि बेहोश होने की स्थिति आ रही थी, औरतें अंदर में रो रही थी। उनको सब मिल करके ढाढ़स दे रहे थे कि रुको, कुछ नहीं हो जाएगा, टीम आ गई, ये कुछ ना कुछ तो करेगी। तो ये जो है ना, ड्रिल इनका नहीं हुआ है कभी इस ढंग से कि पब्लिक अगर फंस जाए तो हम कैसे इसको उतारें। मोनोरेल MMRDA को ड्रिल करने की जरूरत है कि हम कैसे। अभी तो ठीक है, अगर आग लग जाती है एक साइड में इंजन में तो क्या होता? आप ये बताओ। पहले भी आग का इंस्टेंस हुआ, आग की घटना पहले भी हुई है। अगर आज आग लगती तो क्या होता? एक भी पब्लिक को बचा पाते क्या? नहीं बचा पाते, सबके सब जल के मर जाते हैं। तो थोड़ा सा ड्रिल जो कैसे करना है, इसको थोड़ा सा रिव्यू करने की जरूरत है। MMRDA को अपने सिस्टम में सुधार लाने की जरूरत है। कई जगह सुधार लाने की जरूरत है, एक नहीं, हर जगह सुधार लाने की जरूरत है।
अंदर जो लोग हैं वो सुरक्षित, किसी को चोट लगी है?
चोट कैसे लगेगी? सफोकेशन हो रहा है, ऑक्सीजन की कमी हो रही है, ऑक्सीजन लेवल कम हो रहा है और वो परेशान हो रहे हैं। बस एक दूसरे को हिम्मत दे करके वो एक दूसरे को टिकाए हुए हैं।
So that was one of the stranded passengers. He was inside that train. He's talking about how there were problems earlier also with the monorail. Unfortunately, the train that he was traveling in got stuck. and he made a valid point. What if there was any other kind of emergency? Imagine if there was a fire. What would have been the situation? All of those people would have been stuck inside there. Remember, this is a single track enterprise. That's why it's called the monorail. This had been stuck from about 6 o'clock in the evening. The train was basically stuck somewhere between Chembur and Bhakti Park. There was an emergency. Now the BMC teams have arrived there. The fire brigade has arrived there. You can see those massive cranes as these people are being brought down. I want to go across to Mayuresh as well as Yasha, and Tuin Sinha of the BJP is also joining us, but he's also a concerned Mumbaiker. So Tuin, you're watching these pictures, you're seeing these pictures. There is a sense of panic, and you heard from one of the passengers a moment ago, and he was concerned that, look, at least now it has been stuck for a couple of hours and there was rain. It was just a question of somebody reaching that spot and then rescuing these folks. But what if there was, an electrical failure or a fire incident on this train, and these people would have been unfortunately stranded? So walk us through what you're feeling as a Mumbaiker more than anything else as you join us tonight on Brass Tacks.
Well, good evening, Zaka. This has been one of the heaviest spells of rains in the season. And while there were clear warnings since yesterday evening, and more so in the morning today, that unless necessary, unless urgent, people should not venture out, that does not absolve the responsibility of the monorail. I think, one should have taken greater caution. So I think, these are early stages. I still need to know the details. But having said that, I'm very confident that the rescue operation would be, is already taking place at a very advanced level. And I'm sure all of them will be safeguarded. All passengers would be safeguarded and protected. This is just one of the, like I said, probably the heaviest spell of rains in the last several years. And that makes the situation very difficult for every Mumbaiker. But I'm pretty confident that MMRDA has handled it well, and the rescue operations would be over in the next 1 hour or so.
Okay, I also want to go across to Mayuresh and to Yasha. So Mayuresh, tell us what exactly is happening there right now. We can see one of the compartment doors which was opened by the fire brigade. They've got these two cranes where individually, one by one, they're having to ask these people to climb down to safety. What exactly happened? When did it happen? And what's going on there right now?
Absolutely, somewhere around 6:15, this particular monorail got stopped due to the power outage between two monorail stations. And if you can see, Zaka, in the initial visuals, that this train or this rack looks like a tilted one. But let me tell our viewers that this is a sharp turn which usually monorail takes, and that is how it travels. So it is not that it is not that dangerous, because it is a routine turn which she takes, and that is how it has been made. So one by one, now you can see the visuals with the help of two big ladders which are almost 30 to 40 feet long. These people have been evacuated. They have been asked to come one by one. Meanwhile, what has happened that the passengers, or approximately 150 passengers, were stuck inside, and they started feeling a ventilation issue. That's why they broke open that particular window, because these racks of monorail are AC, and there is no other way of ventilation like a window or anything. So that's why they broke open that particular window so that they will get ventilation. We have been given to understand by the BMC they have deployed extra manpower at the ground zero to help the rescue team. Also, there is a medical team which is assisting. Even BST, that is the BMC run bus service, the 4 to 5 buses have been deployed so that the passengers who have been stuck, they can be taken to the hospital or the nearest railway station. But why this has happened, Zaka? Because the Central Railway, which is one of the main connecting railway to the suburban area and the MMR region, that railway is basically getting delayed. The operations of that railway got delayed. That's why people choose the alternate way to reach their home. Because right now also, I'm in Chunabhatti area of Mumbai where waterlogging is still there. It is very difficult for people to come out of the house or even cross the road. So that's why people are opting for this kind of alternate routes or alternate modes to reach their home. And this particular monorail goes towards the Chembur and near Vashi. So that's why it was the very easiest way for the commuters who wants to travel from town side, that is South Mumbai, towards Vashi.
Also, do we know, what led to this power failure? We were also listening to one of the people who was on board that train. He came out and he said that this has happened before as well. There have been, power outages, the trains have been stuck in the past, but it has never happened so that for 2 hours plus, the train was stuck there, it could not be moved, and the only option was to get the fire brigade in with these massive cranes and to physically, one by one, remove these people from that monorail. So do we know what led to this power outage? How was it brought about, and how is it that they were not able to restore the power? Because generally you have backup and backup of backup for power systems for these monorails. But how come that none of that worked?
Exactly, Zach, and that's why the authorities are right now mentioning as a technical issue. But if we see the tweet of Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis, he had clearly mentioned that the inquiry will be initiated, that what exactly had happened and how the all of a sudden power outage happened in this particular route, and why there was no backup. So certainly we have to wait for some time when the inquiry gets over. But it's been very much clear that even Maharashtra CM had taken a serious cognizance of this particular issue and initiated an inquiry.
Do we also know, how long this will take? I mean, clearly the only way of rescuing them seems to be asking each of these individuals to climb down these cranes, these ladders. They're about 20, 30 feet high. How long will this whole evacuation take? And once they reach the ground, what is there? Are there ambulances there in case there are medical requirements? I can see a picture of an ambulance now. What is the other kind of assistance that they have available on the ground?
Absolutely, Zaka. It will take another 45 to 50 minutes for evacuation because right now we have just got the nowcast warning which says that for next 3 hours there will be intense spell of rain which may happen in Mumbai, Palghar and Thane. So if that again starts, then it may hamper the rescue operation and the time frame will further increase. But as of now, on ground, what we are getting to know that 45 to 50 minutes, the rescue operation will get over. If we talk about the alternative arrangement, the BMC had sent 4 to 5 local transport buses to carry these people to nearest station or the nearby halt wherever they want to go. And even if they want to go to hospital, if any one of them have got injured, there is a provision of ambulances which we can see in the visuals also.
Tuin is there still with us. So I want to once again remind our viewers what you're seeing of these dramatic pictures from Wadala in Mumbai, where this monorail, which is a single track rail, it has about 3 or 4 compartments, it got stuck between Chembur and Bhakti Park. This happened around 6 o'clock in the evening. For a good 2 hours, there was no kind of mechanism or there was no manner in which they could get the power back on the train so that the train can move. Obviously, these are trains that run on electricity. So there was a complete power shutdown, a complete power outage. Clearly, there will be an investigation to find out why the backup power systems did not work. But what happened on the ground is for a good 2 hours plus, there was no power to this train. Therefore, the train could not be moved in any direction. And the only way of rescuing these individuals was to bring the fire brigade in with these massive cranes, these massive ladders, which are 30, 40 feet up, and to get these people to individually climb down. Now, obviously, if you're young, you're healthy, you would be able to do this, but not everybody on board that train may necessarily be young or healthy. I saw a picture of a woman who came down and went straight into an ambulance. There could be children, elderly people. Remember, a monorail is entirely, completely an enclosed space because it's air conditioned and so on. So the people there, after a few minutes, after about an hour or so, were feeling suffocated that one of them in one of the compartments broke open the glass enclosure that was there at the window. They broke open the glass window and then tried to start getting out. And in fact, the fire brigade, at least the initial few people who they rescued, were using that enclosure that was created as a result of the glass window being broken. And then one by one, they've been asking people to get down this massive ladder. Let me go back to Tuin. Tuin, so the concern that's been raised, and I think one person who was rescued also said that there have been instances in the past where similar things have happened with the monorail, and there needs to be sort of a thorough investigation to find out why this happened and why this keeps happening. And of course, you look at some of those pictures of the people who are climbing down, women and all of that. I mean, you feel for them. I mean, it's not a pretty situation. Anyway, it's been raining cats and dogs in Mumbai. That in itself is unprecedented. And now on top of that, you're stuck in this train in a closed enclosure for the better part of the last 2 hours plus now. You feel for these folks.
Well, yes, it's a difficult situation to be in. Personally, I'm not aware of a previous instance where, a similar glitch or a similar technical flaw has happened. So I would not be able to comment on it. An official would be, an official of MMRDA would be in a better position to comment on this. But like I said, we are committed to ensuring the safety of everybody, and hopefully the rescue operations would get over in the next half an hour or 1 hour.
In terms of contingencies, I mean, I'm just thinking because you would imagine that a state-of-the-art transport infrastructure like the monorail will have, a backup generator, backup power system, and also in case of contingencies, for example, in the metro, we all know
So
that there are. Yeah, go on.
I think we should wait for, for a version from one of the officials, from one of the engineers working for it, because like I said, while I understand it's a precarious situation, it's a difficult situation for the passengers stuck. I don't think, it would be right to go about talking about assumptions. And I think we should wait for an official version from one of the engineers, one of the senior officials of MMRDA before assuming what has gone wrong.
Okay, Tuin, we'll leave it at that. Let's see. Like I said, we are really hoping and praying for those folks that everybody is rescued safely. First of all, that's the most important thing. And whoever is in need of medical help, then is given that requisite medical help. I saw, like I said, a moment or so ago, a woman being moved into an ambulance straight after she got out of this ladder. So clearly she was in need of medical help. Anish Gawande, I believe, is also joining us. Anish, your thoughts on these dramatic pictures coming in from Mumbai? I mean, like I was speaking to Tuin a moment ago, and he said, it's bad enough. It's unprecedented rain. It's been raining cats and dogs since morning. And on top of that, you have the situation where a monorail is stuck and 150 people are stranded. And now, one by one, each of them is having to be sort of evacuated out of this train.
Zaka, thank you so much for having me on the show. To start off with, let me say very clearly that the focus and the priority right now, regardless of political affiliation, should be on ensuring that every single person stuck in this incident is rescued safely, given the medical attention they deserve and need, and that their safety and security is our first and foremost priority. That being said, it is absolutely unacceptable, given that the government had enough warnings issued to them about the quantum of rainfall that the city was about to witness, that you're seeing such visuals on your screen today. This is utter incompetence and neglect. So let's not shy away from calling it that, right? In the city's sort of heart, the monorail breaking down in this way, leaving the lives of more than 100 people at risk, is unprecedented. This is the country's financial capital. This is Mumbai. This is ridiculous. During the Congress and UPA government, when the NCP, SP and the Congress were in power, we had an incredible stormwater drainage project approved by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh Ji. Where is the money flowing to now? Why have you not been able to counter something that you had enough time and wanting to prepare for? You should have shut down the monorail, And this is not just
I was speaking to our reporter a moment ago, and he was saying that, look, the problem was because the roads are clogged with water, and to be fair, most places have got more than 200 mm of rain in the last 24 hours, and that's unprecedented rain. So most of the people did not want to take road transport because the roads were jammed and clogged with water all over. So one of the options they thought was to try and take the monorail. Unfortunately for this particular train and the people who were stuck in this train, the power went off and they were not able to restore the power, and they were stuck there for over 2 hours. So I think part of the reason why they didn't want to travel on the road was the condition of the road they thought was worse than this, but little did they know that they would be stuck on this train for the 2 hours that they've been there.
Zaka, as an ordinary citizen, you cannot blame me for wanting to take the monorail when the roads are blocked. It is the responsibility of the government to shut down the monorail if it is not able to operate safely. The same thing happens with the Mumbai local. The Mumbai local is shut down when there are cases of rainfall that could threaten the safety and security of passengers. This is basic common sense. How long will the government keep blaming people for taking advantage of infrastructure that they are supposed to build, operate, and maintain? This is absolutely unacceptable logic from the government's part. Because
the thing of concern, Anish, is normally when a power outage happens in any public infrastructure, public transport kind of infrastructure, is you always have a backup system. So clearly somebody needs to find out why the backup system did not work. There's also contingencies that are planned. For example, in the metro in Delhi, in Mumbai, I'm sure, in other cities as well, there are other trains that can be sent, and then the passengers there can be ferried back in the second train. In the case of the monorail, I'm not sure what the contingency is because it's a single track. Could they have sent a second train to rescue the people who were stuck in this train? I don't know. I'm not an expert, but that's again the failure of the contingency or the backup plan is also something that needs to be investigated.
Zaka, this is a concern that the opposition has consistently raised about this government, right? The problem is this government is so busy inaugurating projects. The Mumbai Metro has been inaugurated 6 times, but its whole line, Mumbai Metro 3, is still not open. This monorail has been functioning for this long, yet its safety and security is not guaranteed. Just a few weeks ago, you saw dramatic visuals from the Worli station of the Mumbai Metro 3, which started flooding just weeks after it opened. Just a few weeks ago, you saw a passenger lose his life on the Mumbai Metro because there was no sort of cardiovascular machine for a sort of heart attack in the Mumbai Metro stations. So you cannot have such shoddy levels of implementation. When a work is open to the public believes that it is safe, secure, and built to be able to be used by every single citizen. Look at the scene. The Bandra Link is a good example. Other infrastructure projects like the Delhi Metro are a good example. Unfortunately, the Mumbai Metro and the Mumbai Monorail have been marred by allegations of corruption and, more importantly, crises of ineffectiveness and inefficiency that really are coming to the forefront.
I also want to go across to Susiben Shah. She's spokesperson of the Sena, the Shiv Sena, the Shinde Sena. She'll be joining us on the phone line. So just to bring our viewers up to speed with what's been happening over the last couple of hours. So this is the monorail in Mumbai between Chembur and a place called Bhakti Park. It got stuck bang in the middle because for some reason, we don't know what the reason is, and obviously this will be a matter of investigation. The electricity went out, the power went off, the train went completely dark. The passengers who were stuck inside thought, you know, there might be some backup arrangement for the power, or the power will come back after a period of time. Obviously, a lot of this is related to the rain because it's been raining incessantly in Mumbai since morning, almost unprecedented levels of rain. So the passengers initially thought that the power will come up. There will be some form of power backup that will get activated and the train will be able to move. It's after a full hour that they realize that that's not going to happen, and the only way is if somebody reaches them as opposed to them being moved from the location where they were stuck. So for 2 hours it went on like this, and finally the only way they could be rescued is what has happened now, which is the fire brigade and the disaster relief teams have reached there. The police teams have reached there, and they are now one by one rescuing these people, bringing them down, asking them to climb down these massive ladders. And you can see one of the persons there seems like a young man or a young woman. I can't tell from this angle, but clearly he or she needs help in being brought down. So the young and healthy who are stuck there, they can manage to climb down on their own, but not everybody is necessarily young or healthy. There are about 150 people who are in that train, in that monorail, when it got stuck. All of them need to be one by one evacuated because that seems to be the only way in which they can be rescued. Let's listen into more eyewitnesses, in fact, people who were stuck on that train, who came down, who were rescued by the fire brigade and other disaster response teams, and what they had to say as to what exactly transpired, what led to this, and how they had to go through this ordeal for the last couple of hours.
राहुलजी आम्हाला सांगा की कसं काय झालं होतं.
आम्ही ट्रेनवाला आलो होतो स्टेशनला 5:15ची ट्रेन होती, 20ला आली ती गाडी, नंतर मध्ये बंद पडली. आतमध्ये यांचं काय नियोजन नाही, कसं हे करायचं, आपत्कालीन काय करायचं ते काही नव्हतं. आम्हाला खूप त्रास झाला. वेळ आता इथे आतमध्ये आल्याच्यानंतर फायर ब्रिगेड वगैरे आली, त्यांनी आम्हाला सुखरूपपणे बाहेर काढलं. आम्ही सगळ्या फायर ब्रिगेडचा आम्ही आभारी.
कोणा काही इजा झाली, काही मार लागली काही
नाही, इजा वगैरे कोणा
मेरा क्योंकि हार्ट का ऑपरेशन हुआ है.
तो अभी आप पूरी तरह ठीक है?
हाँ ठीक है, नहीं कोई तकलीफ नहीं.
कोई वैद्यकीय मदद या किसी इलाज की जरूरत
नहीं कोई नहीं.
All right, I want to go across to Susiben Shah. She's a spokesperson of the Shinde Sena. Ma'am, these are dramatic pictures. First of all, your thoughts, your message to the people who are stuck on that monorail. What further information do you have which you can share with our viewers?
A very good evening to all, and I think the only priority and the only priority at the moment is to rescue the stranded passengers. The monorail was inaugurated sometimes in 2014, and thereafter it has been running well. but maybe due to a technical snag or because of the incessant rains, we fear that something which shouldn't have happened has happened. But MMRDA, fire engine, the police, the fire brigade, are all on rescuing the passengers, and we will ensure that all of them are brought home safely, and we will establish a technical committee to see exactly what happened and how in the future such a thing should not happen. We'll take due precaution and we'll work accordingly.
Ma'am, a lot of the people who have been rescued were saying that, look, the power went off. We don't know how and why the power went off, but we were expecting that there will be some kind of backup power that will get restored and thereby the train will be able to move. But for well over 2 hours, the electricity wasn't coming back. They were not able to restore any kind of backup power arrangement to power the train and then move it away to a different location and then save these people or rescue these people. The only option that was left was some of the passengers had to break open a glass window, and then the fire brigade had to rescue at least the initial people. All right, I want to go across to Mr. Eknath Shinde, Deputy Chief Minister. एकनाथ जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आपका प्रतिक्रिया चाहूँगा मैं, ये जो घटना घटी है वडाला में बिटवीन चेंबूर एंड भक्ति पार्क, जो 150 लोग जो फंसे हैं इस ट्रेन के अंदर, आपके पास क्या है लेटेस्ट जानकारी, लेटेस्ट अपडेट क्या है आपके पास?
इसके बारे में मैं लगातार MMRD और BMC के कमिश्नर के साथ संपर्क में हूँ. यहाँ पर ज्यादा बारिश होने की वजह से, हार्बर लाइन जो है बंद होने की वजह से मोनोरेल में और क्राउड हो गई. मोनोरेल में ज्यादा लोग पैसेंजर गए और इसकी वजह से जो उसका इलेक्ट्रिक करंट है वो डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया और मोनोरेल वो टिल्ट हो गई और इसकी वजह से ये बंद पड़ी. और इमरजेंसी जो ब्रेकडाउन जो है ये गाड़ी हुई है और इसीलिए यहाँ पर अभी कई 110 से ज्यादा लोगों को रेस्क्यू किया है. खुद वहाँ पर म्युनिसिपल जॉइंट कमिश्नर है, दूसरे एडिशनल म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर वहाँ पर है, कमिश्नर मेरे साथ में संपर्क में है और पूरी तरह रेस्क्यू को हम लोग प्रायोरिटी दे रहे हैं वहाँ से लोगों को बाहर निकालने की.
अभी तक कितने लोग रेस्क्यू किए गए हैं और कितने बचे हैं और कितना टाइम और चलेगा ये रेस्क्यू का ऑपरेशन जो है?
ज्यादा लोगों को रेस्क्यू किया है और 200 लगभग और लोग हो सकते हैं उसमें. तो ये एक्चुअली ये हुआ है इसलिए कि थोड़ा बारिश ज्यादा होने की वजह से मैंने कहा कि हार्बर लाइन जो बंद होने की वजह से इधर मोनोरेल की तरफ लोग डाइवर्ट हो गए और इसकी कैपेसिटी जो है मेट्रो से बहुत कम होती है, 50% पे होती है.
ये बताइए, ये जो पावर जो बिजली गई थी जिसकी वजह से ट्रेन रुक गई, इसके ऊपर कुछ जांच हुई है कि बिजली कैसे गई और इसको बैकअप क्यों नहीं दे पा रहे थे? बिजली जो बैकअप जनरली होती है, पावर बैकअप, वो किस वजह से? हाँ,
तो इंक्वायरी वाली बात है ये वो तो उसकी इंक्वायरी हो जाएगी, सब कुछ हो जाएगा, लेकिन पहले तो अभी इनको बाहर निकालने के लिए हम लोग प्रायोरिटी दे रहे हैं. ये बंद क्यों हो गई, उसका कारण क्या है, वो सब जांच हो जाएगी और दोबारा ऐसी दुर्घटना ना हो इसके लिए भी पूरी तरह खबरदारी ली जाएगी, प्रिकॉशंस लिए जाएंगे. लेकिन अभी इनको तुरंत बाहर निकालना और उनको मेडिकल फैसिलिटी देना, उनको घर तक सुरक्षित पहुंचाना, इसके ऊपर हम लोग प्राधान्य दे रहे हैं, प्रायोरिटी दे रहे हैं.
एक पैसेंजर जो बाहर निकाला गया था उसने ये भी कहा था कि कुछ पैसेंजर्स जो एक कंपार्टमेंट में थे उनको वहां का जो शीशा था, जो विंडो था, उसको ब्रेक करना था.
उन्होंने वो मैं खुद एक पैसेंजर है प्रवीण नाम का, उससे खुद बात की और वो बहुत डरे हुए थे. मैंने कहा, वो अंदर था पैसेंजर, उससे भी मैंने बात की तो उनको मैंने कहा कि भाई डरो मत, अभी पूरी यंत्रणा जो है आपको बाहर निकालने के लिए आई है और वो निकालेगी, टेंशन मत लो. लेकिन ये जो विंडो तोड़ी ये बात सही है, वो वेंटिलेशन के लिए जरूरी भी था. तो इसमें अभी आगे ऐसी दुर्घटना ना हो इसके लिए तो सब उपाय होंगे, लेकिन अभी पहले क्या है, पहले तो इनको बाहर निकालना सुरक्षित, इसको हम प्राधान्य.
Eknath Shinde, thank you very much. Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra saying that there are 150 people on board this train. He says about 100 in his estimate have been rescued and about 50-60 odd more need to be rescued. Sri Krishna is a reporter with our sister channel Lokmat who's joining us. Sri Krishna, ये बताइए कि अभी तक कितना complete हुआ है rescue operation, कितने लोग बाहर आ चुके हैं और कितने और बचे हैं जो अंदर हैं अभी भी फंसे हैं?
अभी तक तो देखा जाए तो फिलहाल जो है मुंबई पुलिस और जो मुंबई पुलिस देखा जाए तो और एनडीआरएफ की टीम जो है फायर ब्रिगेड है जो निकालने का रेस्क्यू का काम अभी भी जारी है। और अपने साथ वही मोनोरेल में जो ट्रैवल कर रहे थे वही प्रवासी है, उनके साथ ही बातचीत करते। क्या कहोगे, तुम कहाँ से कहाँ ट्रैवल कर रहे थे और तुम्हें कब जानकारी मिली कि तुम अटक गए हो?
मैं लोअर परेल पे चढ़ा था, ऑलरेडी पौना घंटा लेट थी ट्रेन, पर धीरे धीरे पब्लिक चढ़ गए तो भी बहुत भीड़ था, टोटल पैक था ट्रेन। धीरे धीरे बीच बीच में 10-10 मिनट रुक रही थी ट्रेन, पर इधर आके इतना मतलब वो टर्न भी था वो भी। रुको मुझे फ़ोन आ रहा है, मम्मी का रहेगा, शिवा केतन मामा, मैं न्यूज़ में दिख रहा हूँ क्या? बहुत अच्छा दिख रहे। अच्छा, तो फिर इधर आया, इधर आके तो बहुत ही पैक था और इधर रुका, 2-2.5 घंटे से रुका हुआ है ट्रेन। पब्लिक को अंदर पूरा पसीना हो रहा है, सफोकेशन हो रहा है। 2-3 जन को तो चक्कर जैसा हो रहा था। पानी पिलाया उन लोग ने, बहुत कुछ किया। एक तो इंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं कुछ लिखा हुआ है, जो भी है मोनोरेल में क्लियर इंस्ट्रक्शन होना चाहिए कि क्या ऐसे कालीन में क्या करना चाहिए, प्रॉपर रहना चाहिए, वो कुछ भी नहीं था। डोर कैसे ओपन होता है वो भी तक नहीं लिखा हुआ था। मेरे को फ़ोन आ रहा है, डोर भी नहीं ओपन हो रहा था। तो वो अच्छा खासा एक आदमी ने बोला कि वो जो स्क्रीन लिखा था वाइट कलर का, उसको तोड़ दो। तो तोड़ा, तभी वो खोला मैंने, तभी जाके वो ओपन हुआ। तो
पर देखा जाए तो सभी इस दौरान जो है एक हेल्पलाइन नंबर दिया जाता है, वैसी कोई सुविधा दी गई थी। और ज़्यादातर देखा जाए तो कितने प्रवासी थे, कितने संख्या में प्रवासी थे?
संख्या में ऐसे बोलना जाएगा तो हर एक डब्बे में कम से कम 150 पब्लिक थे। बहुत पूरा पैक था, तो समझ लो ऐसे डब्बे तो 700-800 पब्लिक होना पक्का है।
बुजुर्ग कितने थे, महिलाएं कितने थे, छोटे बच्चे थे क्या?
बुजुर्ग कम थे, छोटे बच्चे तो मैंने देखे नहीं ज़्यादा, अगर बहुत ही कम थे छोटे बच्चे, पर बुजुर्ग भी थे और हम लोग जैसे युवा यंग जनरेशन वगैरह थे।
पर देखा जाए तो और हर बार जो है हेल्पलाइन नंबर दी जाती है, एसी है, सुविधाएं जो है कांच फोड़ने के लिए भी दी जाती है, वैसे कुछ सुविधाएं उपलब्ध थी क्या?
इंस्ट्रक्शन ही नहीं है ना, वो दरवाजे के बाजू में भी कुछ इंस्ट्रक्शन लिखना चाहिए कि इसको खोला कैसे जाता है। कुछ भी नहीं था। मैं जहाँ पे मैं दरवाजे पे ही खड़ा था और मैंने बाद में वो आदमी ने बोला कि उसको तोड़ दे भाई, वो तोड़ने के बाद ही वो जो बटन रहेगा वो घुमाने का, तो फिर वो खुलेगा। तो फिर मैंने तोड़ा और फिर वो खुला। तो
जब मोनोरेल फंसी, जब तुम्हें पता चला, तुम्हें अनाउंस करके कैसे पता चला कि तुम अटक गए हो या मोनोरेल बंद हो चुकी है? तुम्हें कैसे पता चला?
2-2.5 घंटे से हम लोग खड़े, मतलब 2-2.5 घंटे से वेट कर रहे हैं। अभी इतना टाइम तो टो वाला भी आ गया था, बीच में धक्का भी हो रहा था, धक्का शाटपन वो कोशिश किया उन लोग ने। एक जन वो आगे से लेके पीछे आ गया था, तो उसने हम लोग को बताया कि अभी फायर ब्रिगेड वाले आके वो रेस्क्यू कर लेंगे करके, अभी नहीं, वो आगे नहीं जा सकती, कुछ तो जाम हो गया है शायद से।
देखा जाए तो रेस्क्यू जब चालू था तब और बहुत लोग जो है फंसे थे अंदर, किसी को सफोकेशन या एसी बंद था, तो क्या क्या दिक्कतें आई?
वही बहुत पसीना हो गए थे सब लोग और बहुत दिक्कत तो।
Okay, Sri Krishna, बहुत धन्यवाद. He's a Lokmat reporter from our sister channel reporting there, and you heard from that person who was stuck in that train. He said the most important thing was there's no instruction written on any of the doors or the compartment windows as to what to do if the train gets stuck for beyond a certain amount of time. How do you open the doors? Do you break open the glass? For example, in the metro compartments, at least in some of the compartments, you have this hammer that is available there. You break open the glass, take the hammer, and then try and either open the door or break open the glass windows and then try and come out, evacuate yourself. But Susi Ben Shah, one of those passengers, you heard him, I'm sure, saying that, there have to be some sort of protocol, some sort of instructions written either on the door or, somebody, the driver or some of the authorities should be communicating with these people what to do in the event of the train stopping. He was saying that no such instructions were either there on the train or were communicated to them.
No, you are absolutely right. I completely agree that there should have been SOP, special operating procedures in such a case or eventuality. But this was inaugurated in 2014. And since after that, there are many modernization which has happened in transport system. We will definitely look into it. As our Honorable Deputy CM and our Pramukh Neta said, that we would ensure that a committee is set up, whatever need to be done will be done. This suggestion by the passenger that special instruction should be put in will definitely be adhered to, but our only focus as of now was rescue of the people. And it must be noted that the entire system was present to rescue because of the incessant rains, because of the harbor line getting clogged by the rainwater. When it mattered the most, the entire machinery, the fire department, the police department, the BMC, the MMRDA present, and including our deputy chief minister himself, he calls himself dedicated to common man. It is an example and case that he spoke to the passenger in the train who was stranded, and through him spoke to all the passengers there that don't worry, we are with you, and the entire machinery, its only job is rescue the passengers and then take remedial measures.
All right, Susi Ben Shah, we'll leave it at that. So once again, if you're tuning in to CNN News 18, a dramatic story emerging from Mumbai where a monorail was stuck between Chembur and Bhakti Park in a place somewhere close to Wadala at about 6:15 this evening. The power went off on the train stopped. There were about 150 people on board the train. They had no information on what to do. Do they break open the door? Do they break open the window, get out? And clearly they were also hoping, some of them, that there would be some kind of backup power generator that will be activated, and thereby the power on the train can be restarted and the train can move. It went on for over 2 hours, and that's when the fire brigade, the disaster relief teams reached there, the Mumbai police teams reached there, and using these massive cranes, these massive ladders you can see about 30, 40 feet high, they had to then individually evacuate each one of those people who were stuck inside and then rescue them. Over 100 have been rescued so far. I believe another 50 odd more are still stuck inside. We spoke to the Deputy Chief Minister as well. That he expects to complete in the next half an hour or so. But lessons need to be learned as to why such a modern, almost futuristic technology of public transport suddenly stopped, and more importantly, why they were not able to get any kind of, backup mechanism activated, either in the form of bringing back power to the train or sending an alternate train and then evacuating these individuals into that train and then taking them to safety. So all of that we will discuss and will be a matter of investigation as well. I want to now shift focus from what's happening in Mumbai to what happened last night at the White House, where there was a dramatic meeting, first between President Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine, followed by a meeting, an extraordinary one, of leaders of 7 European countries, including France, Britain, Germany, Italy, and the leaders of EU and NATO as well. And they decided that there will be, in the future, as early as the next couple of weeks, a direct bilateral between President Putin and President Zelensky, followed by a trilateral with President Putin, Zelensky, and Trump, which will eventually all pave the way for what everyone is hoping, a peace agreement and an end to the war. India is also paying very, very close attention to what's happening in this whole situation that's emerging between the United States and Russia. You had the Alaska summit between President Putin and President Trump on Friday. And then yesterday, you had this series of meetings, first between President Trump and President Zelensky, and then a series of European leaders from Britain, France, Germany, Italy, all of whom had made a dash to the White House. President Trump, of course, met with President Zelensky at the White House on Monday. It's a key moment after almost 6 months after the first rather tense encounter that they had at the Oval Office back in February. Yesterday, none of that sort of stuff happened. Trump has said that he's trying to arrange first a bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky. He's hoping that'll happen by the end of August, in a couple of weeks. And then after that, there will be a trilateral between President Trump, Zelensky, and Putin. Zelensky's also confirmed that sensitive issues, whether it's the issue of security guarantees, the return of abducted Ukrainian children, even the question of territory and which territory and how much territory Ukraine has to give up, that'll be handled later on, either in the bilateral format or in the trilateral format. He's also called the talks yesterday at the White House constructive, saying that there were strong signals from the United States, including an assurance by the US President himself that there will be some form of US involvement in these security guarantees. That'll be front-loaded by the Europeans, of course, but the US will also be involved in a substantial way. US President Donald Trump met with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and other European leaders at the White House Monday. It was a cordial but inconclusive meeting on how to end the war in Ukraine. Much of the meeting focused on what security guarantees the European countries and the United States would provide to Ukraine if Zelensky agreed to a deal to end the war. Trump also spoke with President Vladimir Putin of Russia to begin setting up a possible direct meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Though it was not clear at the end of the meetings on Monday when or even whether such a session would come about between Putin and Zelensky. 3 days after Trump gave Putin literally a red carpet welcome at their meeting in Alaska, he presided over a discussion with America's traditional allies from Europe, which included the leaders of 7 major European countries, including Britain, France, and Germany, as well as NATO and EU. All of them rushed to Washington to ensure that Ukraine is not strong-armed into a deal that it doesn't want to accept.
We're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
Some differences broke out, though. Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany argued for a ceasefire to be put in place before any further negotiations with Russia. But he was gently rebuffed by Trump. And President Emmanuel Macron of France suggested that he was skeptical that Putin was interested in dealing in good faith at all. He said that he did not think that Putin wanted peace. But the good news is that there were no blow-ups, the kind of which that we saw in a previous visit by Zelensky to the White House back in February. All the participants in this week's meetings appeared to agree to a plan to arrange direct talks between Russia and Ukraine while other issues are being worked out. But the precise nature of the security guarantees for Ukraine and whether or not Ukraine will have to give up territory, how much territory it will have to give up, all of that was not publicly discussed. European leaders pressed Trump to provide what they call a security guarantee that's similar to NATO's Article 5. As per NATO's Article 5, an attack on Ukraine would be considered an attack on all NATO countries. But Trump was non-committal on that. Instead, he simply said that America will also be involved in some form of security backstop for Ukraine.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Trump continued to portray Putin as genuinely interested in finding a way to end the war. At one point of time, Trump broke off the session with European leaders in the East Room of the White House, and then he telephoned the Russian leader. That telephone call lasted for about 40 minutes before Trump returned to the European leaders and Zelensky and briefed them about his conversation with the Russian president. Trump later said in a social media post that he had called Putin to begin arranging a meeting between Zelensky and the Russian president first. That, he said, would then be followed by another meeting which will be a trilateral between the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. But it is not clear when and if such a meeting will happen at all. Putin does not consider Zelensky as an equal. He does not even consider Zelensky to have been elected legitimately. So even if it does happen, this meeting, the bilateral and then subsequently the trilateral, it seems unlikely that this meeting will happen at the level of the presidents. It is more likely to happen at the level of senior advisors or possibly even foreign ministers. Trump has said that he does not want to provide more aid, particularly military aid to Ukraine, but that he's willing to sell arms to the Ukrainians to fend off Russia. Zelensky expressed particular interest in acquiring more Patriot air defense systems to help minimize the damage from Russian missile attacks. In fact, the Financial Times was reporting that Zelensky had proposed to buy up to $100 billion of American weapons, which will then be paid for by Europe. Also, America will buy from Ukraine up to $50 billion worth of drones made by Ukraine. When asked what kind of security guarantees he wants, Zelensky said everything.
What security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes two parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
Much of the discussion centered on how to put in place effective security guarantees for Ukraine to end the war. On the other hand, Trump pushed for a trilateral meeting with Zelensky, Putin and himself, but there were very few tangible signs of progress that was made in the meetings or any specific details that were shared at the end of it. There was no mention whatsoever of any concessions of territory which Ukraine will have to give up to end the war. But it was clear in the run-up to the meeting that Ukraine will have to give up nearly almost all of the Donbas region in the east. It will also have to forget about Crimea, which Russia had annexed in 2014. There was no mention either of ceasefire, which Trump had insisted on before the meeting with Putin in Alaska. He seems to have now shifted that position closer to Russia's position, which is in favor of a larger peace agreement and not a ceasefire. But there were frequent discussions on security guarantees to make sure that Russia does not invade again. America and Europe would possibly assemble a force, a military force that's drawn from an international coalition of the willing. That force would be stationed in Ukraine after a peace agreement between Kiev and Moscow, but no one has quite detailed publicly what that force would look like. One concept is a full-blown peacekeeping force that would supplement the Ukrainian military. It would be put in place just for defensive purposes, but the idea would be to deter Russia from attacking again, particularly if there are foreign soldiers from NATO countries who are stationed in Ukraine. The problem is that for that force, that military force, to be some kind of a credible deterrent to stop Putin from attacking again, it would take tens of thousands of troops. But that is something no one is willing to commit to. No one wants to put boots on the ground, even as America and Europe have been badly burned in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. I want to go across to Elena Treen. She's a White House reporter with CNN. Thanks very much, Elena, for speaking with us. How is the White House viewing these latest developments? Pretty important meetings that happened yesterday at the White House. Both Zelensky and Putin seem to be, at least for the moment, willing or open to the idea of a bilateral meeting, followed by a trilateral meeting with President Trump. Can he secure the peace deal? I mean, ultimately, that's what he wants to. He sort of dumped the idea of a ceasefire. He says there's got to be a full peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, well, and I also would just say it's unclear at this moment if that bilateral meeting that the president is pushing for is actually going to happen. Zelensky is showing willingness to have that, but we aren't hearing the same from Putin and the Kremlin. They're actually throwing cold water on that idea. And so there are concerns that perhaps Putin is not going to be willing to sit down one-on-one with Zelensky. And part of that is because Putin doesn't really view Zelensky as an equal to him. Or hearing similar things out of the Kremlin this morning, but still, of course, waiting to see if this is even possible. Now, from the White House point of view, they believe that this is necessary to ending the war. The president, President Trump specifically, believes that Zelensky and Putin need to be in the same room. They need to hash this out, whether it's with him or without him, in order to really find an end to this war. And that's kind of what you saw happening yesterday. One of the key things from that summit with Zelensky here, but also 7 other European leaders. You mentioned, France, Germany, Finland, the European Union president, the head of NATO, all of them here to try and hash out what needs to be done to really see if they can get to that peace agreement. And the president then paused his meeting partway through. He had a couple hours where he was talking with these leaders, and he went into the Oval Office and called up the Russian leader to talk it through with him. I'm told by a White House official that after that, he invited the European leaders and Zelensky back into the Oval Office to brief them on what was discussed. And then, of course, we saw the president himself post on social media that he is trying to set up this bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky. And then if that goes well, there could be another trilateral meeting that would include him to follow. But again, very much unclear at this point in time, when that could happen, where it could happen, but also if it even will happen. And that's what I think the conversations today and over the course of this next week is going to be really focused on. But as for whether or not he'll be able to achieve a peace deal. It is very clear that the president is willing to go places where many leaders aren't to try and get this done. And that is by, of course, seeing, Putin come to the United States. He was on American soil meeting with President Donald Trump, but then also, potentially, and this is where I think some European allies and Ukrainians have a little bit of concern, is potentially willing to give up more than perhaps they are comfortable with. So all of that really a focus of discussion yesterday and a key question as we look ahead to whether or not this meeting between Putin and Zelensky will actually take place.
A lot of the conversation yesterday also focused on security guarantees for Ukraine that, Russia would think twice or maybe 10 times before trying to attack Ukraine again. And Trump said that while it'll be front-loaded by the European countries, it will have U.S. involvement. Do we know, what the nature of these guarantees are going to be? Does it involve a peacekeeping force? Will they be, U.S. troops guarding the border between Russia and Ukraine? I mean, what are the contours of this?
That is still unclear, but definitely something that was really a central focus of yesterday, I'm told, of the conversations that Trump had with these European leaders. Look, the fact that the president himself, President Trump, is saying that he wants the United States to be involved in ensuring the security of Ukraine should a peace deal be reached is a notable change from the rhetoric of the past. He had often said that it would be up to European leaders to really have those security guarantees for Ukraine. Now he's saying he wants to be a part of that the United States will be a part of that. As for whether or not U.S. troops will actually be on the ground, the president was asked that directly yesterday by reporters, and he did not rule it out. He didn't say that there would be, a military presence from the United States to help secure Ukraine, but he didn't say there wouldn't be either. And so I think that, of course, is also a key question. We heard Zelensky today actually put out a statement saying him and other leaders are really working on what the concrete steps would be and what these security guarantees would look like in the specifics, really trying to hash out the specifics and the details of what that could look like. But a lot of the European leaders, after they left the meeting, sounded very optimistic about where President Donald Trump was on security guarantees, calling it a breakthrough. We heard that term used by the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, as well as the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, all saying there was a breakthrough when it comes to security. And I'd remind you as well, it comes after we had heard Steve Witkoff, one of the president's special envoys. He was in the room on Friday when Trump met with Putin, saying that there will be some similar, akin to Article 5 security guarantees, and that Russia said that they are willing to accept that. So that was another major breakthrough in this entire process of trying to find peace. But again, the contours of that and the details of what the United States is actually willing to provide still very much unclear at this point.
All right, fascinating indeed. Elena Treen, thank you very much for joining us this morning from the White House. Thank you.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Wang Yi, remember, is on a two-day visit for talks with his counterpart, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, that were held yesterday. He met with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval under the Special Representatives mechanism just a short while ago. He is expected to meet Prime Minister Modi later this evening. A broad agenda that included trade, connectivity, pilgrimages and river data sharing was discussed between the two foreign ministers. Jaishankar reiterated concerns previously raised during his visit to China in July, stressing the importance of avoiding restricted trade measures between the two major Asian economies. The Chinese foreign minister also underscored that as neighboring nations and major economies, there are various facets and dimensions to ties between India and China, and called for easing of roadblocks to enhance bilateral exchanges.
There has been an upward trend. Borders have been quiet. There have been peace and tranquility. Our bilateral engagements have been more substantial. And we are most grateful to our leaders who, in Kazan, in October last, were able to set a new trend. And we have profited a lot since then. The new environment that has been created has helped us in moving ahead in the various areas that we were working on. I'm very hopeful that, like the last one, this 24th Special Representative level talks would be equally successful. This SR level talks assume a very special.
The setbacks we experienced in the past few years were not in the interests of the people of our two countries. And then in October last year, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi had an important meeting in Kazan. That meeting pointed the direction for the development of our bilateral relations and provided impetus for the proper settlement of the boundary question. We identified specific goals and formed a working framework. We are heartened to see the stability that is now restored in the borders. The Chinese side attaches great importance to the Prime Minister's visit to China to attend the SCO summit at our invitation. We believe that the Indian side will also make your contribution to a successful summit in Tianjin. History and reality proves once again that a healthy and stable China-India relationship serves the fundamental and long-term interests of both of our countries. It is also what the developing countries all want to see. I am ready to work with you to build more consensus and identify the direction, the specific goals of the next of the boundary consultations going forward, and create more conditions for the improvement and further growth of our bilateral relations.
Siddharth now joins us for more inputs and perspective on this. Siddharth, as far as ties between India and China are concerned, they seem to be on a mend now, especially after the Galwan clashes. But what's important is that the focus remains on the border. During the meeting with Wang Yi yesterday, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar made it clear that disengagement is done, but de-escalation is required, and that's the need of the hour.
That's right. In fact, there were 3 Ds, Poonam, which were promised at the time of Kazan summit. And these 3 Ds are disengagement, de-escalation and de-induction. Now, disengagement is almost over. As far as de-escalation and de-induction, is concerned, perhaps there is very little progress, and this has been the concern of Indian side from a very, very long time. In fact, before this also, before the special representative level talks also, India did raise the issue of slow progress as far as a de-escalation and de-induction process is concerned. Perhaps at that point in time, India was told that such issues will be dealt at special representative level talks. So now this is the 24th special representative talks which took place in New Delhi. In fact, Chinese have come up with a release also, Poonam, and this release says that to explore fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solutions in accordance with the political guiding principles agreed upon in 2005.
CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions.
We're live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions. Viewers, 2 days ago, psephologist Sanjay Kumar of the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, or CSDS, flagged significant voter additions and deletions in the Maharashtra Assembly election. The psephologist, who is quite well known, had claimed that the number of voters in the Nashik West and Hingna Assembly segments of the state rose by 47% and 43% respectively.